and then put them in and you go, well, you docked.
No, I was coming from Harrogate, it took me a few weeks to get here. How are you all?
Good.
You good? Good. All right, Jill's here past starting time, so I'm gonna call the meeting to order. First thing on the agenda is to have the roll call. And Jill Brooks, present.
Yes.
Steve Cutt. Present. Roger Ford. Present. Jerry Wire.
Present.
Edward, is that Anglin? Present. And I'm here. Susan, she's in China. JD's in Knoxville. And Gail, or Ruby, I call her Gail all the time.
My friends do.
Everybody over in Fairfield calls her Gail, so that's the roll call. 2 absent, Jill, JD, and Susan. All right, the next thing on the agenda is public comment. Does anybody in the audience out here want to make a comment before we begin discussion?
I will let you know that at 6 o'clock I gotta go across the hall for a sanitation board meeting, but I'll be back as soon as that's over. If you see me slip out, slip back, that's,
Well, if we're not here when you get back, just
I'll
wait,
lock
we'll
up.
be, no, just wait, we'll be back.
okay, I'll go and turn the lights.
All right. Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the October 16th meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Not yet, not a motion. I would like to make a correction, I believe.
Okay,
First of all, I would like to say that I appreciate personally what JD did in this week's, the minutes for the last meeting, because it helps me tremendously to refresh my memory about what went on. I mean, it was really good, it's really good. My correction is halfway down the page in the paragraph that starts discussion was made about the number of commissioners. And a salt vote was taken. I believe that it says that 5 were for 11 commissioners and 2 were for 21. According to my notes, I had 6 for 11 and 2 for 21. Since there were 8 of us here,
right.
I think 6 was the correct number and not 5.
Well, Jill, you want to make a notation of that, correct?
So it's 6 for 11 and 2 for 21?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's get back to the agenda.
Any other discussion on that?
With that adjustment or correction on the minutes, now do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second? Okay. Motion's been made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, old business, we want to review the discussion or go over the discussion of the legislative branch second draft that Jerry has so kindly and quickly, I believe.
Do you have another copy of that?
I have one. Jerry, you got another copy?
I brought myself a copy,
Oh.
but I didn't bring copies. We sent it out, if
Oh, okay.
you remember, we sent it out
Steve, you got
like
one?
9 days ahead so that everybody would have it.
Has everybody got one? Except you?
Did you get it, Jill?
No, I did not. Yeah.
You didn't get it?
No, I
Susan
didn't.
sent
I
that
didn't
out?
go see him.
No, I didn't. get it.
Well, that's my fault.
She sent it in an email though. Did ever, would y'all do, if y'all will do me the
Yeah, I
courtesy,
didn't get an email regarding
okay,
it. No.
if y'all will do me the courtesy of giving me your email address before you leave,
I do not have email, they turned it off in our way.
what will you?
And
But
they have it
I can
right
get
on
it
there.
too, Gail.
Okay,
Yep.
then I'll see that when I finish these things, when I send it to Susan, I'll send it to everybody at the same time. And then everybody will have it.
Yeah, well, I got mine, no problem.
Yeah, I got it. But I didn't think to make copies because I knew she sent it out. All right. Now, do we wish to do it just like we did before?
Yeah, let's do that.
If y'all recall, we just go through it line by line.
Well, you know, there's some areas that
Yeah. shoot it down, speed through it,
Right.
hurry. Get
I
to the
don't
spot
even
where
get
people wanna make a
phone
change.
over there. No, we don't have no towers down there for it. Did you?
Okay, page one. Anybody have any changes, comments? That's lines 1 through 36. Last chance.
No, I didn't.
All right, page 2. Lines 37 through 72. Now, you know, what I did was, everything that we discussed and the changes that are recorded in the minutes are in here. We've made those changes, and there's also some additional things that I put in there that are in red, so we will get to them. But all the changes that we went through last week are already in here. But since you had time to look at it and study it, if there's anything else, now's a good time to do it. All right, page 3. That'd be lines 73 through 108.
Mine don't have it on there. It's all right.
What, the line number? Huh, I wonder why.
All right, Jerry, you'll have to do better now.
Does yours?
Yeah, this one
Yeah,
has lines.
they do.
This one has lines.
Must be your printer.
I read that.
Okay. All right, nothing there? All right, so this will be page 4, lines 109 through 144. Yeah, there's a red one there. That's something I put in.
On,
There's just the meetings.
On number 2, where you guys, again, I wasn't here,
Mm-hmm.
where you guys discussed, no member is eligible for more than 2 consecutive 4-year terms. Was that discussed as commission members only, or is that other collective
That was discussed as commission members and mayor.
and maybe
Other than that, no.
no other?
And if you read through that, and you see those are the only 2 that are listed here.
Well,
And
that's what
everything
I
else is
understood,
open.
I just wanted to clarify.
And when we get into the other charter officers, there'll be a block.
Yeah, we haven't got to the
We haven't gotten to them yet.
judicial and stuff
Yeah,
yet,
we haven't
so.
got to go there. This just covers the county commissioners. Everything in this section.
So no more than how many for the county commissioners?
Well, what he's asking about is the terms, which is
Yeah.
2 4-year terms.
In other words, term
8
limits.
years.
Yeah, term limits. As far as the numbers, what we discussed and had a soft vote on, as JD referred to it, was 9 and 2, 1 for each district and 2 at large county commissioners. So we would be going from 21 to 11 county commissioners, and they would be limited to 2 4-year terms.
But when, I want to ask a question about that. When you say 9, we've got 9 districts. Is that 1 for each district, or are in the middle of something, they're going to say, no, we're having 2 over in Powell Valley or somewhere?
All right, the best way I can
We
answer.
we
this-
discussed that the last time, excuse me, Jerry.
Go right ahead.
And we agreed that that would be 1 from each commission, or each district, regardless of size.
That's in concrete.
And, well, it will be if this is
If this
approved by the
passes.
voters. But, and then we agreed to have 2 at large that represent. the
However,
county.
I know you're really concerned about yours. and-
Yes, I am.
And so am I.
And, we talked in the minutes, and, JD had it in the minutes that Gail and I were gonna
Wouldn't
meet
work on
with,
it.
gonna meet with some of our people over there and give our views and so forth to present and include in this charter. And due to my, and by the way, while I'm thinking about it, I want to express my, I really appreciate the support and the prayers that you all did for me during the tragedy that I had, that I went through in the last few weeks. So I really did appreciate that, and I want you to know that. that often and not been that close of friends, I still appreciate it very, 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 very much. But anyway, yes, we're gonna meet, Gail, when me and you have time and present, what we feel like the Clarfield should be included, and make sure that we have representation from Clarfield. And so I think we've pretty well covered that, don't you, Jerry?
Yeah, could I add one thing? Because I know this is near and dear to both of y'all's hearts, in a very sensitive situation. 2020 is a new census.
Mm-hmm.
At that point in time, the county will have the ability to change districts. And it'll be up to y'all to work with your county commissioners, whoever it is. You know, there'll still be 21 of them in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be a new population,
Right.
and they will probably be redistricting, I would guess. Mr. Mayor, you may know more about that.
You have 9 because Clarifield's geographically isolated right now anyway, it doesn't matter. So the redistricting takes effect on all the 8 on this side of the mountain. You all per state, because you're geographically isolated, must have a district representative. That's why there's 9 going in. And that's why last week, when you all had a concern about redistricting, it's up to the county commission to change the size of those individual districts to level out the population. And that's when I made the comment that if the state or the county commission wanted to make the 9th districts larger, they could by incorporating some of Speedwell or some of Cumberland Gap. And that's when I said you all should put the language in there that in the 9th district, you would need to be a resident of Clarfield should that happen.
Exactly.
And those 2 at-large seats then could be somebody from Speedwell or Cumberland Gap that might feel they wouldn't be represented by somebody on the other side of that mountain that could run a countywide ways to make sure that that area of Cumberland Gap or Speedwell is represented. That's how that would work. But when you all vote to have 9 districts, you'll have 9 districts unless it's changed through a charter amendment in the ballot box. It'll be set in stone if the county approves the charter the way that you all have.
And the thing about it is, you've got to consider the isolation of that community.
And that's why you have your own separate legislative district now, because the state understands you're geographically isolated.
Well, as long as we can incorporate that in the charter.
I think you've already got that in there, but again, that should be language that you all should probably write for your next draft approval. I know you're gonna go on to the executive tonight after you get through this part. That should be something that you should go ahead and put in there, that the representative from the 9th district must be a resident of that district, Clarfield, proper.
Do we know that, do I need to get legal opinion on that? Because it sounds like you're saying, okay, Clarifield's a city, is it not?
You've got
It's not a
Clarfield,
county.
Pruden, Egan, you would have to be somebody over in that known district right now, and Gail can tell you about it.
So we would need to include all of them.
You would need to,
Yeah.
that you would need to be a resident of some one of those community areas over there that make up all of Clarfield to be eligible to run for that 9th district spot. And that's how you would ensure that you would always be represented by somebody on that side of the mountain.
Well, you know, it's outlined geographically by the mountain.
And that's why you have a
It's
district now,
got to be
because the
somebody
state,
that's within that geographic area.
and the state's already saying that.
Yes.
You all wouldn't want to change that to charter, that's why you just put that language, if the 9th district grows,
Exactly.
it has to be a resident of one of those 4 communities over
I
there.
was just concerned with being one city.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I left Pruden, Egan, and a few others out, I'm sorry, but that, like I said, Gail would know better what they all want there, and you as well,
Oh, yeah.
so.
Okay, I think that answers Gail's question pretty good.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, anything till we get down to the section on commissioner salary and expense?
And we have all agreed on term limits, correct?
Well,
For the
No, we didn't all
legislative
agree.
branch.
well, we didn't all agree, we were
But that was the majority.
6 and 2.
Yeah,
Yeah, for the legislative
Yeah,
branch
for the
thus
legislative
far,
branch,
so.
yeah, so far.
okay. And does that does include the mayor as well?
It will when we get to the legislature,
Executive part.
It will. Okay, All right, commissioner salary and expense, this is where I wanted to suggest a change. You know, one of the things that the current commission has the ability to do is to raise pay, which periodically needs to be done. They need a raise because costs change, gasoline goes up,
That's right.
cost of living, and that needs to happen. However, for myself, and each one of you will make up your own minds, for myself, I'm not comfortable with anybody being able to give themselves raises.
I agree.
And I don't like that. So I did some research and found a couple of counties here in East Tennessee that have a very unique way of paying their county commissioners, which I thought would fit us very well as far as keeping the costs down, but ensuring that they get pay raises without them giving them to themselves. In actuality, the state actually gives them to them. And that's to link their pay to the mayor's pay. You know, as we get into the executive session, we'll do the mayor's pay. From the discussions we've already had, it sounds like everybody agrees that on the county commissioner side, we wanted to limit the pay to whatever the CTAS schedule was. And so assuming we're gonna do the same thing with the mayors. And the reason I say this is kind of unique is because Hamilton County, Blount County, a few other counties, they tie their county commissioner pay as a percentage of the mayor's pay. And so anytime the state gives the mayor the lowest echelon based on county size, gives them a raise, well then, because his goes up, theirs goes up. But they don't have to vote on it anymore. They can't just raise their pay on their own. And in looking at it, for example, right now, the CTAS says for our size county, the low end of the mayor's pay is $88,890-something. So if you did 3% of that, or 4% of that, whatever percentage, 5% of that, that would bring you down in the $250 to $300 a month or month range for the county commissioners. And then when the state says, okay, they need a 1.6% raise this year, in the coming year, well, it all goes up because the mayor's pay is gonna go up, so theirs would go up too. But they would no longer be voting for their own raises.
Well, you pretty well stated that here in this draft, haven't you, Jerry? It says the salary of the commissioner should be the sum equal to 5%.
Well, that's your draft. The original draft didn't have that in there. I
Oh,
changed
this
that
is
this
what we
time.
want.
Yeah, we didn't talk about this last time.
Right. Well, that's the reason I underlined that. I had a question about that.
And I
And
don't
you
like,
answered about how much the mayor's salary was, and so that gives us an idea of how much the 5% would be. Plus, I didn't understand, plus $50 for additional expenses.
Take that out.
that's what I was gonna say too, I don't like that
I don't
whole
like
last
that.
All
line.
right, we'll
Time
take
to
that out.
time,
Right.
I don't like that at all.
Jill, we on the same page, sir?
No.
Right now,
But Roger
how is
didn't
the-
like
I didn't like
how
it
is the
either.
Yeah, Roger
mayor's
didn't like
salary?
it either.
That's,
How's our mayor's
that's
salary
real.
right now?
That's
I mean, who
That's a little
determines
too
what
vague.
it is?
Yeah.
Well,
County
it's-
commission.
Yes.
No, it's
My
the
No,
goodness.
mayor's.
it's base pay
What's
from
in
the
the
state.
most-
State pays from the
Yeah.
state, but the
Yeah,
county
the other
commission
day,
can
you
pay
know,
above that
It's just too vague.
by
To the mayor?
resolution. But we don't.
I don't.
Personally, I just like it all controlled by the CTA. Personally, that's
But
me.
it's the-
I agree with you.
I agree with that.
Yes,
I agree with
And
that.
that way,
And that way you can't have any controversy.
that's exactly
you're
right.
being
That
paid by the state scale, and this is what they say.
Exactly.
State legislator came up with it, it hits all 95 counties equally.
Mhm.
And it's
Okay.
done by size, so that's.
Right.
Any
I agree with the
commissioner should
5%, but let's,
like-
Yeah.
They don't have to vote for their own.
Yeah, it
commissioner.
protects them.
It
protects them out of
from
the
having to
crosshairs.
vote.
Yeah.
Takes
but
them out
let's
of the-
eliminate that
Somebody
$50,
Done.
Jerry, or I want to. How does the rest of y'all feel about that, the $50 deal?
Eliminate.
Eliminate.
I said eliminate it, yeah.
Okay, so we're unanimous on that.
What about it, Jill?
I just did that because I come from business where we have business expenses. You
Yeah.
need to have some way, you know, as I've always, my wife can back up, if you're in business and you're doing things, even if you have an expense account, so to say, you still lose money. I mean, you just do, because you spend stuff that you don't receive and whatnot, you just
Well,
never
that's,
gonna get it back.
that's different from what they
Well,
apply.
That's right.
That could really be
Well, yeah,
taken advantage of.
It could be exploited, for sure.
well, if it was a fixed amount on a monthly basis, no. Or you don't get it, but I'm,
But from time to time, it's a little vague. too.
yeah, you know, cause I just figured, and this is just me, if we go to 11 commissioners, that's gonna increase the ratio of population and voters per commissioner. And postage, if you're mailing anything to 1,000 people versus 350 people, postage goes up, telephone bills could go up. Not that I've ever received a thing from a commissioner up since I've been here 12 and a half years, I've never received one piece of mail from a commissioner, so I don't know.
I've never received one, I've been here forever.
So,
Like you, how it's going to.
so, yeah,
I can say one thing, you may well think about when I read that, and this is a thought that I had, Jared, when I first read this draft, when he sent it, the expense. There are things that county commissioners go to that are training,
mhm.
through CTAS or the Tennessee County Commissioners Association. If those are overnight expenses or there's mileage done, the county traditionally will pay a mileage to cover gas down or a hotel room or something like that. That could be something that you all may want to put in here, not just for county commissioners, but the mayor, the sheriff, any elected official that goes on county business for training, that they're reimbursed for that rate, because if you don't have that in there, chances are you may not have anybody that's gonna go to
So
training.
you're suggesting a per diem rate?
There you go. Well, the per diem rate would be what it is mandated by the state. That's what it is
That
for
would be the
mileage.
best way to do it.
Right. But if you go and spend a night at a hotel for a training, or you pay $250 for that training session, typically the county reimburses all that because it's a knowledge base for like,
Right.
what's the property, Shane, that's the property assessor. He's gonna do a lot of them to where he can work with it.
What we do in, education, we fill out a travel form
Yes.
and, designate, it's limited as to how much we can spend for a hotel or how much a meal.
That's right.
But we fill out the mileage, where we're going, and so forth.
Right.
Yeah, that, I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm just wanting to bring
Because
it
they
in
certain
because I see
expenses.
that expense in there,
Yeah.
because there will be expenses on some of the stuff. I got one across the hall.
All right, well, on that
Yeah,
same
they-
thing,
Their Barbie on that way, I couldn't limit up.
who approves,
Literally.
who approves
The travel and so forth.
the attendance? Who said, yeah, you can go to this one, and what keeps someone from saying, well, I'm going to this one?
You have to fill out a specific form designating exactly where you,
So it's a pre-approval process?
yes,
It's like a
pre-approved.
voucher.
It's pre-approved by the chairman of the board and the director of schools.
Okay, so who's gonna pre-approve a county commission?
Well, I'd say,
The chair?
the chairman of the commission and possibly the mayor.
Chairman and mayor, Paul.
That's what I would suggest.
Both of them, or just one of them?
I'd say both of them.
And most of the
That's just
time-
like, now, I'm principal of the school, for instance, and when one of my teachers has to go to, for instance, the Title I conference in Gatlinburg, I have to approve that from the school, and then the director of schools has to approve it as well. And we have a form that has that on it, and purpose of the meeting, where the meeting's at, and down here at the bottom, I recommend that teacher go to that meeting and approve that trip, and turn it in to the central office, to the director of schools. And so, in turn, if he thinks that that's a viable thing, that it's a necessary thing, then he approves it and turns it in finance, you see. And so that gives.
Two eyes on
Mhm. Right.
Okay, that sounds good. Any other comments, suggestions? I think that's great.
Okay. And so, you made a note of that.
I made a note of that. On the percentage, what percentage do we wish to use? I can tell you that 3% equals to $292 a month. I take that back. 4% equals 292. 3% equals 220, and 5% equals.
Is that based on the
That's
county
based on
mayor's lowest
on the lowest
Lowest.
mayor pay as of 2018-2019.
Okay.
How much is 5%?
5% is, 366 per
How
month.
much commissioners get paid now?
5%, particularly for one of fewer commissions.
Hmm,
Do what?
I mean, 5%? Anybody, want to go
No,
with 3 or 4?
Explain this again.
Mhm.
Who are we wanting to have this percentage?
County
The
commission.
The
commissioner.
commissioners.
Yeah.
Right now, they're getting 350.
But if we reduce the amount from 21 to 9, it's, you're going to save. probably-
21 to 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna save some, but
That-
that's not what the big savings are gonna be. We're gonna save some.
So you wanna go with 5%?
That's what I think.
Deal?
Me too, I think it does.
Steve?
Yes.
Okay. Gail?
I'll say no.
Just so it won't
You
be
want me,
unanimous.
you want me the contrarian?
Yeah, I'd go to 3.
Well,
Because, like I say, each year it's gonna go up.
Now, this
That
is-
would be
this
less
is-
than they're making now with 21 of them.
And from what I've seen of the, no offense, but from what I've seen of my county commission and the way they work at their meetings, that's what the word.
I agree with that. That's what we're trying to get away from too, though.
So this is after the reduced to,
That's
the
going in the minutes.
nine.
11,
Yeah.
11.
You're
And-
going 5. Come on,
Edwin.
come with me. Walk the hard
They're-
road.
So they'll continue at their 350.
No,
No.
No, it,
No.
this will replace the
5%.
350.
yeah.
This is
It'll be
replacing.
5% of the lowest, amount that the mayor makes. If he makes 80,000, it'd be 5% of
And
80,000.
4,000, but divided by 12 months, would be 300.
Well, if it's 89,000, they'd make $370 a month.
I got it, I worked it out here. Like I said,
But also
366.
remember, it's 11
292,
of them
220.
versus 21.
Do what?
Remember, it's 11 of them versus 21. They're gonna have some bit more.
I'm for 5%.
And we would save a little bit of money, but
Oh, yeah.
So I'm the only,
You 5%.
5%.
You wanna vote, so I know who's up for it and who's not.
Yeah,
this is a soft vote.
Okay,
We're not
I know.
report, we're just
I
taking
know,
numbers.
Yeah.
I know.
We're not taking,
We're not taking names yet.
Okay, that's fine.
okay.
All right,
So that ended
so
up,
you want 5%?
yeah, that ended up 6 and 1.
I think the whole idea is a great idea. I don't know why more counties, those are the only, I only found 3 that are doing that. That's a great, to me.
Well, I do like that idea, just because they can't vote themselves a raise anytime, and a lot of people complain about that. You know, my commissioner don't do nothing, you know, they just show up at the meeting.
And then every year they
And then they
vote
give
raise.
themselves $100 raise, you know?
well, I'll tell you what, I feel like mine does a lot.
Well, that's yours, but there are some that.
Because we don't get representation of the law, but being
Yeah.
over there and everything else.
Well, that's why I've
you know.
gone.
Yeah, well, you've only got one over there, so yeah, he does, so.
Yeah.
Next page then, 148 through 180,
Yeah.
section meetings and quorum.
So it's okay.
Keep stealing.
It's all right.
We're still gonna stick with the quorum of 75% of the membership.
Is that a, I mean, if there's 11 of them, that would mean 8 of them have to be there to make a change.
I'm for
I think
that.
that's right.
I'm for that. Let's leave that like it is.
Okay.
And the rest of that page that I read, it looks, I mean, that's just common, sort of reasonable. There's nothing of controversy there.
Okay. Next page, line 181 through 216.
Start out for each commissioner, commission meeting. All right, I think we've already answered this question where it says, shall notify the public of any such meeting.
What line is it?
It's gonna be,
Right, top part.
182.
Oh, the 182, okay.
I think I read on over in there that they had to give 10
10
days
days.
notice, and I agree with
Yeah,
that.
we.
3 days notice is not enough.
Yeah, that's what we kicked around.
So we've already taken care of that.
Mhm. Any other comments?
No, the rest of that's just pretty well cut and dry.
Okay.
That's
One
great.
thing I would like to make sure that everybody saw is down there in number 2, beginning on line 210. Because I believe the county commission is supposed to be doing this now, but they don't.
What is it?
Before the commission can proceed to vote on any matter, the chairman or chairwoman of the board of commissioners shall ask the audience for any questions or comments regarding the matter at hand. The commission meetings I've been to, the chairman has never asked the audience for anything. They always vote and it's done. And I just wanna make sure that y'all are aware of this, that, you know, you may have feelings that what they're doing is the right way to do it.
No.
Well, if they give 10 days' notice of what's,
Of the meeting.
of the meeting, the public has an opportunity to discuss that, to think about it, to research it or whatever. That could open, I mean, that could get,
Well, still
You-
good, you know, even if you
you
got
could
10
get,
days to
I'll
research
tell you,
it.
what you could happen there, and of course, we're a democracy, but, people that might oppose it, they might gather up a army of supporters and bring them in, and,
Back what?
yeah.
Now, I'm gonna hear,
And
I'm
I'm all
gonna tell
for
you,
it personally.
I'm gonna tell you something I heard them talking about. They wanted them to ask for questions when they began the meeting. And then they wanted them to go back at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, well, we.
Why, you
I
know,
think
why would
that's
you do two times?
Yeah,
Oh, if you recall, we deleted the
First,
first.
yeah,
Yeah.
we,
Taking that
Well,
out.
they
We
were
took
talking
it out.
about that they do that in the commissioner's office.
But
And
I
I'm
do
not
think-
saying- Or in the commissioner's meetings.
I think too, if they're gonna ask questions, there needs to be a time limit on it too.
Yes, they do.
Absolutely.
Definitely, yeah. time
Absolutely.
limit,
What
so.
kind of time limit?
Well, up on the 217 up
3
there,
minutes.
it's got listed 1
For
minute.
questions and that.
And it's listed for 3 minutes. 3 minutes is a long time.
Yeah, it is,
I can deliver a 400-word soliloquy in
yeah, 3 minutes.
55 seconds.
Yeah, so that's what I say. I mean, you can ask, you ought to be able to ask a question, a very short question, and sit down and let the commission answer your question, you know, before a vote.
So a minute.
So, I think so.
A minute's a reasonable time.
Yeah, it is.
And that's
1
what
minute.
we got.
So, 1 minute. Time limit on that one. Germane to the question. Now, that's already in
Yeah,
there.
it is. I was
Okay.
just fixing to say, we've already got that.
It's over on the other page.
It's on the
Next
next
page.
page. Will be limited to no more than 1 minute unless more time is allotted at the discretion of any commissioner, and I think that's paramount.
Question on that, though, is that, in my mind, if a person has the nerve to stand up there and challenge the county commission and ask a question, do they deserve an answer? I mean, if they don't, if whoever they're addressing, if they can't answer it, then what? Or if they don't answer it, then what? Should we put something in there that says that they get an answer then, and if
I
they
thought
can't,
I seen
then they
something
would
about
get an
that.
answer,
The next time.
not the next time, within a certain amount of days or whatever, that somebody would give them an answer.
Did you have something about that in
This
this?
is
I
to
did
proceed
one
on
time.
any vote.
Time is needed. If right here,
It's in the very first one, and that's just on the comments, you know, at the end of the meeting, if you stand up and ask a question at the end of the meeting. I'm talking about here, which is before a vote.
Oh,
If they're
okay.
gonna vote on somebody and the
Well,
county
I've got
commission.
seen something
Yeah,
about that.
if the county commission or the commissioners as a body cannot answer the question, should they be allowed to vote? Or should they have to wait until they can answer the question?
That could hold up any Carters for years.
Very good.
That's a slippery slope.
Yeah, it is.
Well, if they wanna get up and make a comment and express their opinion,
That's one thing.
they don't need necessarily have an answer. So maybe we could word it that way. If you wanna express your opinion or make a comment on the, whatever being presented, you can do that within 1 minute.
I would think that if that person is from
get what's gonna be on the agenda for the evening, if I see that and I'm an unhappy camper, I'm gonna be calling my commissioner.
Mm-hmm,
I'm the same one.
mm-hmm.
Now, I don't get any literature from him, but I call him.
That would require the agenda being out 10 days in advance.
And I think we've addressed that in this.
Yes.
We address a notice of meetings.
Oh,
It's not publicly
The agenda,
advertised, the agenda.
in the county commission,
It's
even
not.
if you want an agenda, you gotta go to the meeting, they give them out there. So you don't,
Well, again, I'll refer back to our, board meetings at, school board meetings. They do put out an agenda a week ahead of time. And so you've got time to look at it, and if you've got any questions about it, you can talk to your board member from your district before the meeting.
so we could
Or
go,
if you've got any questions, you can talk to your board member before the meeting.
so we can go back and
And
require an agenda
to
as
be,
part of the notice.
yes,
To be posted.
and I think we should.
I like it.
I'd like to see the agenda posted on the website of the courthouse.
The website, we had a big laugh over that last week,
Yeah.
last time.
A website.
Yeah.
A website.
That's gonna be tough, cause I have actually heard one of my county commissioners say he don't get what's on the meeting until the day of the meeting.
Well, now listen, this could
I
be
have actually
public,
heard one
Real-
of my commissioners
Cause
say that.
they're supposed to be able to get that from the county clerk is supposed to.
I know, but I've heard one of them say that.
well, you can't satisfy everybody.
That's true.
And it's impossible to notify every single citizen of Claiborne County to give them an agenda. We can publish it in the paper a week ahead of
Or,
time.
I mean, if you posted it at the
Okay.
courthouse, that's a public,
Why
no.
not?
Think about it. How are you gonna post an agenda on a meeting 10 days ahead of time in a weekly newspaper?
Well, yeah. Well, you got a matter of 3 days. so-
Yeah.
It would be-
But still, yeah.
Well,
tough.
the mayor's working on a website for the county, so if he can get that up working order, then the agenda can be posted on that website for anybody that's got computer access to pull it up and look at it.
Mhm.
So, cause he said that in the last meeting we had, that he was working on
He was
that,
gonna check, yeah.
Okay,
so.
but we wanna require a 10-day, that the agenda be posted with the meeting notification, with 10 days prior.
Good enough.
Okay. All right. Then ordinances and resolutions, that's what, lines 223 to 252, same page.
I didn't see anything wrong with that. The only question I had, when you come down here where it says, every ordinance shall be read on 3 different days in open session of the legislative body on 3 different days before its adoption. And not less than 1 week shall elapse. Now, does that mean that we're gonna have, that the commissioner's gonna have to meet 3 times in a week?
No, it just means that at each meeting, they would have to read the ordinance
Month.
months. So it takes 90 days to pass an ordinance. That's the whole idea, is to slow down the passing of an ordinance.
But it says, and not less than 1 week
Right.
shall elapse.
In other words, you can't read it 3 days in a row.
They can't call
Special meetings,
special meetings
Back to back to
3
back to
days in
back.
a row.
Okay.
at least, a week has to pass, at least a week between each meeting. So it's gonna
Okay.
take at least
All right.
3 weeks to pass an
Minimum
ordinance.
3 weeks.
That just sort of seemed a little bit ambiguous to me.
Yeah, but normally it would be 90 days.
That's what I thought, but then when I read that, and it says that not less than 1 week shall elapse, I
And
said, well, wait a minute.
And the reason behind that is an ordinance carries more weight than a resolution.
Yeah.
An ordinance can actually include a fine or
Mhm.
confiscation of property or
Right.
something, so.
Okay. We good on it?
Get on that. So now lines 253 to 288,
Line 277.
277.
I have a question.
Oh.
You were talking about before, like, ordinances, I know you used that part, but when we first started, you were concerned about them passing stuff, a certain amount of percentage of the budget. You know what I'm talking about? They had to pass something that was,
Oh, he was talking about, spending above the
Spending
budget.
caps.
Spending caps
Yeah,
on
is-
things so that you can't
Is
go more
that,
than
is
10%.
that something that needs to be put in the ordinance section right here, or?
Wouldn't be
is
in the
that-
ordinance section.
Would be more than
It'd be,
executive.
it'd be in, no, it would be here, but it would be a resolution.
Okay,
They would pass a spending resolution.
okay.
Depending on what we do with budgets,
Well, that's what I was referring to as in
Yeah.
executive session.
that's gonna be, the budget will actually be addressed in the executive session. But
Okay.
depending on what we decide to
Okay.
do with the finance committee,
Okay,
that would have a big bearing on that.
okay.
Mhm.
That's what I wanted to know where it needed to be, so.
Okay? You had a question? 277?
277, says any proposal that amends this charter, what they're talking about up there, or what I perceive, is it requires a 2/3 vote. Okay, that's all fine and well, but I'm looking at it on another side here, that if we do this charter and we present it to the residents of Claiborne County, they approve this, then a commissioner could come back and take it out.
No,
No,
That's what it's saying.
no.
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 Amend it.
It says,
Well, I mean, amend,
Well, they can, once we get the charter set up, it's a set in stone, but they can do some amendments to it to change little things, but they can never change
No.
the charter.
okay,
No.
well, what I was going with this is, we're coming up with 11 commissioners. Could they amend that to be 15?
No,
Then I'm lost.
all right, here you go. Let's put it this way. Go slow.
Go, s-
That's hard for me. Under this section, it actually prevents them from passing ordinances to do the items that are listed under here, such as any proposal that amends the charter. They can't pass an ordinance that amends the charter. They can submit a amendment to the charter with 75% vote of the commission. They can submit, but then it has to go on the ballot and be voted on by the citizens of the county.
That's
To amend this
That's-
charter,
yeah.
it has to be.
Yeah.
The only way the charter can be changed is by a vote of the people.
By the people.
Right.
That's right.
Commissioners cannot change.
Right.
See, right now, it's just the other way around. The people can't change the government, but the commissioners can. We want to flip that and make it that the people can change it.
You done well, you went slow.
Wouldn't slow down?
yeah, that's why we're going through this,
Yeah.
so.
And we're gonna go through it again. We're gonna go through it a lot.
Yeah, we've got a few months left.
We're gonna go through it a lot. Other questions on that page, down to 288?
287 needs to be eliminated, though.
Any proposal which increase, yes, well, if we adopt, well, no, not really. You could leave it in there as a double whammy. Here's the way you're gonna get paid, and oh, by the way, you can't change the way you're gonna get paid.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so now we're at 289 to 324. Except for Thomas.
Yeah. Let's see where we're at here. Commissioner, yeah, I'm on it.
Okay.
That's a continuation of
Yeah.
item D.
Nothing there, all right. 325 to 360, emergency ordinances.
Oh, yes. Okay.
I'm hoping that somebody else did some homework on this, because if you recall at our previous meeting, I think it was the mayor told me we couldn't make it harder to raise taxes than to reduce taxes, as far as the requirement of the number of votes. I haven't found anything that says we can't do that. So I'm hoping somebody else did some research on that. Because here it actually does, they can reduce taxes, property taxes, they can reduce that with a simple majority vote. But to raise a tax, it takes 75%. It's gonna take 8 of them again to raise the tax. Whereas they can reduce taxes
With a majority.
with a simple majority, which would be just 6 votes. Takes 2 more votes to raise the tax than it does to reduce the tax.
Yeah.
So unless somebody tells me we can't do it, we'll just, I just assume leave it in there.
Well, I'd rather it be easier for them to reduce taxes as easier to raise them. What do you think? I see you thinking there.
Yeah, I'm still hung up on, it, even though you went
Go
second.
ahead.
But it says, all ordinance shall be adopted upon receiving a majority vote
Mhm.
of the membership of the Board of County Commissioners, except for the ordinance dealing with the following subjects, which shall be adopted on receiving 2/3 vote of the full membership of.
But I see what you're saying, I need to
That
flip the
would
words.
be-
Yeah.
to
That
be
means you can do this
clarified.
if you got three-quarters of the vote.
Mhm. Yeah, you've got a good point there. Correct that, Jerry.
I'm looking at it. Good catch,
Mhm. That's good.
good catch. That's why we need an attorney.
So yeah, before we're said and done, we'll have it looked over by
Yeah,
an attorney
betcha.
with a fine tooth comb to make sure that we're not contradicting ourselves or whatever.
Those or may or shall will hurt you.
That's right.
Well, you know, you have to define in the document, you'll put, we'll add a page of definitions. That shall means this,
Mhm.
may means this. All pronouns are assumed to be both male and female.
Would that be fine if A were stricken and written in a different paragraph that said the things that had to be done through a vote of the people?
That's in a separate section of each of the ones that we've looked at, that's in a separate section.
Well, then A shouldn't be in this at all.
Which one, we're back to where we were?
Yeah, number
Line
277.
277, if that were taken out completely, there shouldn't be any way that they can vote, no matter even if it's a full vote of 11 to 0.
And also
Well,
item E.
On the proposal, on amending the charter, yes. On
Yeah.
the other things, like
Also-
such as changing the purchasing or fines on ordinances or, we'll take that D out, as you suggested, we can take it out. Because it won't be able to change it.
And E.
Change the number of county commissioners. Well, you can take out the number of commissioners. We'll have to get a legal opinion on district lines. Because that's a requirement every 10 years based on population census is where the district lines are drawn. They have to be able to move them based on changes in population. But we can take out the number of county commissioners.
Mhm.
Okay, anything else? So we're over to emergency ordinances again?
Yeah.
And we were talking about the tax, what it takes to change taxes,
Mhm.
and we agreed on that.
Mhm.
And captions and subjects, that's an ordinance can't be, put one thing, can't cover more than one subject. That's not. Now, we could spend 45 minutes on delivery of copies. Our county commission did. I don't know why we can't. But,
Where you said there is in 4, you meant 4 days?
yes.
Yes, it was in 4 of the final package.
Yeah.
So that was 4 days.
The proofreader did. veto, how hard should it be for the mayor to veto? All you gotta do is say no, but how hard should it be for the commissioners to override the veto?
You've got, what, 3/4?
Mm-hmm. Again, that means it takes 8 out of 11. As opposed to,
That gives the mayor a little bit more authority. To me, it makes it more difficult to do that.
if you make it you know, it makes it more difficult to override, yeah. If you cut it to 2/3, and you're looking at
7,
7.
7 out of 11, I think that'd be more reasonable. That gives it, I mean, that'd balance it out between the commission and the mayor. That wouldn't give the mayor a little edge, so to speak.
Say it again, 75% or?
Yeah, if,
Well, if you do 75, you'd have to have 8, and if you do, if you change it to 7, that would be, I don't know what the change
for
would
the
be.
2/3.
Yeah, about 2/3. And I think that would be more balanced for both sides
In other words, it would take a vote of 7 commissioners
to override.
to override a
Override a
veto,
veto.
as opposed to 8 commissioners to override a veto. How hard do we want it to be for the county commissioners to override the mayor's veto? Remembering that now, under our new system, in the past, the only person who was voted on by the entire county was the mayor. But now you're gonna have 2 commissioners that are voted on by the entire county also, 2 at large.
I don't think we should go with 7. If you go with 8, the mayor's got a little more authority that he might, I'm not talking about anybody in particular, I'm talking about on down the road. You might have a mayor that, would take advantage of that one vote.
Very well.
And I'd rather have it that the commissioners, you'd still have a good majority of the total amount of commissioners to veto the mayor. And without having the mayor having that extra authority, you might come up with a mayor that wants to,
All right, but we set the quorum at 8. So if only 8 of them are there, and if it takes 2/3, then it's only gonna take 5. What if we would do it instead of a percentage as a vote? Take 8 votes or 7 votes, or 6 votes, whatever, pick a vote instead of a number, because the quorum will allow, if the quorum's 8, you know, anything over 4 is gonna be able to override the veto. Do you want 4 votes out of an 11-person commission overriding the veto?
I think 7 would be probably more fair than 2/3, because somebody that didn't want to vote could sit out that vote,
that's right too, good point.
that it did take 7 votes to override.
So do it 7 votes?
So,
What do you
Yeah,
think?
percentage scenario, but it's, we went through here
Well, we
2/3,
don't-
3/4, but how, if you went with the 7 and you have an affirmation of 3/4 vote or full commission to pass any proposal or resolution like will taxes stuff,
You don't have to have the same amount.
No, but you got a good idea there.
but
Well, you change this to full commission, instead of just,
a percentage.
instead of a quorum, it can be a full commission vote to override a veto.
Yes.
And so then if it's a percentage, it's gonna be 7 or 8, whatever percentage you decide. But just make it a full commission vote as opposed to a regular quorum vote.
If we do that,
7/11ths of full commission.
I like that.
Well, yeah, I do too, because if they've got, if they've got the desire to really veto it,
They
they're
all-
gonna have all of them
They
there,
all should be there.
you know? If the sentiment of the commission is to
get it passed.
get it passed, they're
Then
gonna
they
make
should
sure
be able to
everybody's
get
there.
11 people there.
Right.
All right, so do we want to go with, 2/3 or 3/4?
Which one gets the 7?
2/3 to get you
You
7.
can do 7-11.
Okay.
I'm slow, that boys. I've had a long day.
All right. Everybody okay with that?
Any opposition?
No.
Or improvements, or?
Okay.
Okay. Removal of a commissioner. Actually, there's two ways to remove a commissioner. One will be by recall, which will be addressed further down in the charter, and recall will be one. And the other is according to state law. So, okay. But just in case you think, well, what about a recall? We'll get to it. It's in a different piece. Right, for the chairman to designate somebody to stand in for him.
Well,
It is.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Vacancy.
I didn't see anything, any controversy there. Nor the vacancy.
Does that vacancy need to be somehow written that person that fills the vacancy is from
That is.
that district?
Should be.
Yeah. That should be
It's not
in
in
there.
there.
It's not, but it needs to be, I think. By a resident of that
Yeah, that's
district.
a good point. You know, we've got in there, any commissioner run has to be a resident of that district to
Mhm.
begin with, so, yeah.
So we're now on line 468, approval of nominations.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
What is a divorce referee? Do we have one? Can we take that out?
I don't think we have one
No,
on this can,
so I've never heard of
but
that.
that's,
Just eliminate that.
I've read that in several.
I have to, I mean, and do we appoint a public defender, or does the court appoint a public defender here in this county?
The court appoints.
What, the public defender? Yeah, you could make it an appointed position. As opposed to the court appointing them, you could make the mayor or the county commissions appoint them. Question is, would the attorneys want to work over there?
Right. I don't think we should have the mayor appointed,
Okay.
and I think we should have a commission appointed.
That way there's more than one person.
Are you speaking of the county attorney, or,
That's what I'm thinking of.
okay, yeah, well, you and I are gonna have difference of opinion on that. See, I think when it comes to appointing a county attorney, that he should work for the county, but he should report to the commissioner. You know, if the commissioner wants to send him off doing things, or investigate things, or try things, why should the county commissioners be privy to it? Just as if the county commission wants them to do something that the mayor doesn't need to know about, why should the mayor be privy to it?
Well, one of them's got a point there.
Well, but you would think, you know, client privilege would step in, and the attorney wouldn't go either way. But we know that's different, this is politics, and it will go, so.
I don't think we can do much about that.
Okay, well, just something we have to think about. And then my favorite one, recodifications. No changes?
No,
Wonderful.
no.
I like that.
I like that.
I
I
like
thought
that.
that was a good deal.
All right. So, I will make those changes. And we'll have a draft to read.
So you won't have as much work as.
Nope, not near as much. However, we'll be starting the executive piece. All right. You know, and if y'all don't have my email address or my phone number, I'll be glad to give it to you, so that if you think of something that needs to go into these things while I'm doing, you can contact me directly.
If you send out a draft on the executive,
No, I have not. Like I said, I didn't do
I was
that.
just thinking, I've not got one, so
No, I started on one,
that's fine, all right.
but as I
That
told
was just a question.
Susan, I thought that we should talk about some things first and get everybody's input on which way they wanted to go with this thing.
Better idea, yeah.
As to what, you know, because like I said, I'm working with 3 different copies and 3 different charters. And whichever way we feel, that's the piece I want to put in, which one represents the way we feel as opposed to just blindly doing it.
Okay, we're to that point.
So, that being said, what does everyone think of the mayor's position? Does it Tom and I were talking earlier, do we want a strong mayor? By that I mean, he drives the commission. Do we want a strong commission that drives the mayor? Do we want them to fight? Do we want them to work together? I mean, when I say fight, do we want them to be antagonists? What do we want to do with the mayor?
The mayor is the chief executive officer of Claiborne County. So I think he should be the one to propose the direction that we're going. A plan, a 2-year plan, 3-year plan, whatever. I think that's the duty of the mayor. And I think he should be the one in charge, period. And I just relate that to my situation as principal of the school. I don't think the teacher should be in charge, I think the principal should be in charge. I'm the one that presents the yearly objectives, our goals. I'm the one that makes the school improvement plan for the next year, 2 years, 3 years on down the road, and I think that's what the mayor's responsibility should be. So that's my opinion.
Take the nod as,
I think so too.
all right, so the mayor should be the driving force.
Exactly.
Still want 7 votes on that veto over? Just a question.
Now, there gotta be checks and balances, so.
You made a move, I thought that was gonna say, mayor in charge. All right, that being said, the biggest thing, in my opinion, that happens in this county on an annual basis that affects everybody is the budget.
Absolutely.
So, that being the case, what should be the mayor's role in the budget? The budgeting process.
I think the mayor should make the budget and present it to the commission. And then they can negotiate, or they can propose a alternate budget or alternate portions of the budget, and then they can work on it from there. That's just like, again, at my school, I make the budget, but then I have some teachers say, Mr. Zachary, I believe you need to reconsider this area because we need more equipment, or our copying machine, just for instance, is not working properly. We need to put more money toward that. So I think the mayor should make the budget.
And where does he get the information to make the budget?
Well, he just has to look at his responsibilities and
Well,
what he's.
he would be in contact with all the
Yes.
department heads, like the sheriff's department, the road department, the schools, everything. He should already have knowledge of that stuff to get a budget set for the next year.
Well, he's gonna have.
Will
a
they
budget.
not present a budget to you? The school department, the road department?
The way it works right now with the 81 Act, no.
That's what I'm getting at.
Right.
I'm letting y'all talk, in case you haven't figured it out yet, I'm letting y'all talk yourselves out of the 81 Act. I want you, for each of you to see it as I see it, as being ridiculous and overkill. And, I mean, there's some good things to it, don't get me wrong, but we spend a lot of money in this county generating a budget that could be done for nothing. And that's just, that budget's costing us probably close to $100,000 a year. to
Well,
generate.
originally, that's what the mayor did, that was part of his duties. And then
And
it got took
it should
away
be.
for some reason, so it needs to go back to the mayor.
Which would mean that the other elective offices would have to provide the mayor with information.
Mhm.
They would be responsible for putting together a budget for their office, and it would all work up to the mayor. That makes sense? All right, here's the question that came up in my mind. Who determines the number of employees in any office?
That office holder.
The office holder, okay? And how do they determine that?
It's supposed to be done on need.
I know she said that.
And
Supposed to be.
Well-
they some restrictions from the state too.
But there are a few, you could make the case for the tax assessor's office, Alice's office, that she has down there, I think, counting herself, she has 4 girls that work full-time jobs. Now, that's what Alice needs during tax time, when they're busy collecting all your property taxes and stuff. So that number would ebb and flow as you have taxes coming in, she needs more workers. When taxes go out, she would need less. But right now, that's under Allison's purview, if she wants 4 or 2, or if she could have 2 year-round employees or 2 extra ones at tax time during tax season when she needs more. Ideally, if you're working in budgets and you're talking to these office holders and each one of these budget heads, like the road superintendent and sheriff, you're determining what their need is, and then with the growth plan of the county, what the mayor's ideal or agenda would be for that county, they would work together to come up with a number that's compatible with spending for grant money, that's matching funds, so the county doesn't have to raise taxes to get that stuff, to where the mayor could call for a 20% reduction across the board in all of those departments, and then the mayor would work with those to say, this is where I would like for you to be, let's try to get there in a common ground. But that's, I don't think there's a guideline that says X amount of numbers. Typically, they come up at each budget year, and then they say, I'd like to have another employee.
Okay, so unlike other areas of county management, CTAS doesn't have
There's no criteria.
employee guidelines based on county size, population, this type of thing. So in effect, the way we're set up now, the county tax assessor could have 10 people.
If she chose, or 1, if she could do
Or
it
one.
very effective with 1, that would be up to her how she want to do that.
And it's up to her because we elect her or him
That's correct.
to decide what's best
Mhm.
and do it.
And then she presents a budget for employee salary. If that's a $100,000 budget, she can hire 4 employees for $25,000, she can hire 4. If the rate goes up for 35, she would either ask for a budget amendment or let one of those 4 go to cover to stay within her
All right,
budget.
so when I look at the county budget now, the numbers I see for, just the one that sticks out in my head, the sheriff's department, they break down pay as far as salary as deputies, detectives, juvenile officers. But when you look at it, you don't know how many deputies, how many detectives,
Correct.
because the detective pay is actually, looks like it's an add-on to a sheriff, a deputy's pay. It's an additional amount. And you can't tell how many people are hired, how many people being paid, how many people on the streets. You can't tell anything from the budget about the number of personnel.
Right. That's true, Ken.
Yeah, so,
And that's true of every office.
of every office, so we really don't know what's needed or required.
Well, these people are elected, the sheriff's elected by the people, and he's got the job of law enforcement for the entire county, and we put that power in his hands to hire the number of people to do the job, to keep the peace, to enforce the laws in Claiborne County. And that's why we elect the sheriff, and that's his responsibility. And if he thinks he needs 25 deputies to do the job, And if we don't like it, we can vote for somebody else next
See,
time.
that's my point. I don't know how many deputies he needs to do the job.
Well, no, that's why we elect him.
But he doesn't tell me how many deputies he needs to do the job either.
He kinda does in his budget. Let's say, for instance, you're $3.2 million on your sheriff's side of the equation of itself. And that's broken down into, to personnel,
Mhm.
insurance,
Maintenance,
you know,
insurance,
equipment and all this other stuff, you know, vehicles,
transportation,
all
all
that
that.
stuff. So it is broke down in that one salary line, but there's no rhyme or reason to your point of how many people are under that salary. But, for instance, if you went crazy and said, we're giving you a $5 million sheriff budget, he could have $1 million employee budget. He could have a deputy at every street corner, because you give him that much money.
Right.
It's a matter of a needs assessment with him from year to year on how many patrols he needs for 3 8-hour shifts every day. And that's historically been done from whatever the last budget was. And that the state will watch that through what's called maintenance of effort. Okay? Now, maintenance of effort is pretty simple. If the budget is $100 this year, and this is a simple explanation. If it's 100 this year, there's two budgets that can't be cut, except by the office holder, and that's the sheriff's budget and the road department's budget. So if I, as mayor, wanted to come up with a plan to reduce spending in the county, I would have to have those two office holders on board with reducing their budget by 20%. Drop it from 80, from 100 to 80. The rest of the office holders don't have maintenance of effort. Those are the only two offices that have to have the office holder on board to cut their budgets. That's a state law. Again, you know, from the beginning process, you won't be able to usurp state laws when we go talk about budgets and stuff, the powers of the mayor. But I think for the budget process, it would just be working with individual office holders to establish a budget, and then that budget is presented to county commission for approval. Because if the mayor presents a budget, he's already got the consensus of the office holders that they can operate their budget within this dollar amount.
Should and this is to y'all, not the mayor, should we be looking at, if the mayor is going to assemble the budget with information and help from other elected officials, should we be looking at zero-based budgeting? Or should we be looking at percentage increase budgeting, which is the way it looks like it's done now? It doesn't appear to be a zero-based budget. It's just looking at the 5 years, it doesn't look like it's done that way, so. And just in case, zero-based budgeting means each department starts at 0 and builds what they need for the year. As opposed to, well, we spent this much last year on this, so this year we're gonna spend 3% more, or 4% more, whatever percentage you want to put in, 1.6. So that every position has to be justified every year. Every improvement. Now, you do your capital separate, so capital improvements and things are separate, but your personnel, so that you know what your health insurance, your social security, those type of things, you do it by each individual as opposed to, or each position, as opposed to just starting with a number and adding a percentage to it. I will tell you that in most cases, businesses operate on a zero-based budget because things change. You don't need as many people, or you need more people. So some things change, so you fluctuate and go as to what you need, as opposed to just throwing a number up and saying, this is what we spent. And having dealt with governments and government offices, the problem that they have is if they don't spend it, they lose it. So therefore, to keep their budget, they'll spend it down to the dime. You know, businesses that do business with the government, August and September are the paydays, because you can hit them all and they're gonna spend every dime they got left, just so they'll get the same number plus a percentage increase the following year. So when we're talking about the mayor and budgets and the budgeting process, that's something to keep in mind. Do we want zero-based? Do we want to do normal at a percentage, or do we even want to stay with the 81 act of 81 or whatever? if you haven't read that one, you need to.
Yeah, we need to have a little more information on
Yeah,
that.
you need to, because,
But I can go back to what Jerry said too. I was in business 23 years out of education, and I had anywhere from 18 to 25 employees in various small businesses. And, yeah, I operated on zero.
you bet,
And,
by far the most efficient way to
oh,
do
yeah.
it.
And if you're in business, you've got to do it that
If
way.
you're looking to save money, reduce money,
Mhm.
you use zero base all the time. But, all right, so it sounds like though that we want the mayor to assume the budget. So that means he works with all the other department heads. An elected official. Just out of curiosity, you probably got a better knowledge of this, well, maybe some people here at the table do. Have we ever, has there ever been a study done on county government as to what you really need, number of people you need to operate a county government?
I don't know that there's a study done, but I'm sure there's probably some kind of guideline, CTES.
I would,
Probably would have some kind of guideline somewhere on per,
because I would think if you
Capital.
don't, you got 30,000 people, 32,000, and out of that, you've got, say, 17,000 property parcels, that there's somewhere you can find out and say, well, how many people does it take to process taxes? And how much does the state do as far as sending out taxes and whatnot that the county really doesn't need to do? So that you can reduce the cost of operation on a county level.
I don't know exactly, but again, CTES would
Because
be
you
the
can
spot.
use that analogy on any department.
Yeah,
If you went on population.
absolutely.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
could say, is our road department too
Yeah.
small, or is it too big?
Right.
Too big.
Or the sheriff's
Oh, the
office.
sheriff's
Yeah,
department.
well, the sheriff's office, I would wonder, because population is one thing, but road mileage and coverage, size of county, geography is another. You know, how many people does it really take to effectively cover the geography, as opposed to how many people do we really need for the population? Because the population is, in some areas, can be very sparse. And then do you need the same amount of people because your response times and other things drop. I know, for example, in your area, there was an uproar over ambulance service, which is an obvious thing, you know, response time there is probably as important as anything else. And, or
More so
important.
because we don't have a hospital
Right.
within 30 miles.
Well, we don't need it, but,
You got one right here. And I was told I should move to Tazewell, which I could have if I wanted, you know. But when you start talking about the road commissioner's money that he has and the sheriff, in the past, the road commissioners, the mayor has come and used the road commissioner's money for other things that need to be done in the county.
I don't know about that, but I'm just, I don't know how you could do that if the budget is
And
set.
right now, I'd say we don't have enough, we don't have the proper amount of money to help keep the roads in
Well,
okay.
and
Well,
we-
let me give you an example. And I'm not an elected official, I'm a principal of the school. All year long, in order to operate that school efficiently, have enough money for maintenance, have enough money for classroom supplies, we are constantly raising money through the school. We're having fundraisers, one right after another, all year long, because the state does not provide enough money to the county to properly operate the school. Now, the state furnishes so much money to the counties, and the mayor has to decide which department needs the money in order to efficiently operate that department. And if it's like the school system, there's not a single department in the county that has adequate money to keep up the roads like they should be. You all grow over the roads in the county. And it's that way all across the United States.
But look at the amount of money.
I'm going to back Mr. Zachary up with what he just said, because I'm the president of the board at CCI, our community center. And year before last year, we helped buy computer papers
Exactly.
for their machines for the kids and stuff. And we did the work on his,
Playground.
playground.
There's a big disparity in the amount of money we put into the road department versus the sheriff's and other departments too. Especially for the amount of funds that they need to do.
Yeah, the amount of roads that they've gotta maintain and such.
So, something y'all said though, started recording my head. They can transfer money
To other departments where they need it.
from different budget items to other, I was gonna
Is
say,
that
I
for the
would,
general fund?
well, that could be a
You
general
can
fund, but
transfer
something's
money
budgeted,
within
I
the
wouldn't think
department.
you'd be
Yeah.
allowed to
I
move that
don't
from
think
one.
they
You
would.
can't take
You
it.
can transfer any monies within a budget to any line item within that budget.
Within
With
that
the,
budget.
with the approval of county commission.
Yeah, okay.
You cannot, for like the school system budget, who out of your property tax money gets approximately half or 55% of that tax money for the school system, you can't change that over a dollar amount, it's done by the penny. So if you wanna take anything away from the school system over into the general side, the 101 fund, which is the fund for all of them except for the road department, the 116 fund, those can only be moved between those for each penny. So if you wanna take something away from the school department, give it to the road department, you can only transfer pennies of property tax for that. If it's inside the 116 with the road department, they can come and move any dollar amount they want to for equipment, employees, supplies, whatever.
So within
But
that,
that's all done through the county commission, the mayor can't pick up the phone and say, I'm taking 2 cents from the school and I'm putting it over here in the 101 fund, it's not done.
is tax village, is it broken in this county? I've never seen anything that tells me that I'm paying a millage for school tax, a millage for roads, or a millage.
Yes, it's broken, the budget is set on how much percentage goes to, and that's split between the school side and the general budget, and then the road department gets its portion out of the general budget.
Okay, so if I wanted that information, who do I go to, the assessor? They can tell me the millages, the different
You would
millages?
go to the finance department right now.
Yeah, that's all that I've got to do.
Must be 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
Do we want to adjourn?
Let's-
I can see
let's
that.
wait.
let's finish this.
I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Millage. All right, so the mayor's gonna assemble the budget. Do we wanna talk about zero-based budgeting, or do we wanna,
I think we need to discuss that at another time.
another time?
Yeah, that's what, I think so.
Mhm.
When you do that at another time, look and see on the language for maintenance of effort.
For what, Mayor?
The maintenance of effort, where I was telling you the 2 budgets you can't control except for those budget overs, you'll need to include that in there somewhere, if not, the state don't ding that.
And that's just for the road department and sheriff's department?
That's the only 2 that fall under maintenance of effort, yes. Well, the school department falls under there automatically,
But,
because
yeah,
you
that's
get,
what
you
I
get
started
federal,
saying.
you get federal dollars from that.
Yeah.
You have to match what the state say you have to match, so.
You'll act like a believer.
Well, I want to
I'm
do
just getting
four.
Well, there's no heating here.
I'm just getting started. All right, so we're gonna talk about the type of budgeting next week.
Yeah.
And as we were discussing earlier, who should the mayor be allowed to appoint? Here, we, the one that came up was the county attorney. To me, I think that he should appoint the county attorney, and then the commission approve it one way or the other. But for the commissioners to nominate and vote on their own without any outside, see, this,
No, I agree with what you said.
what, mayor appoint?
Mayor appoint, commission approve.
So, but, all right, so what other committees and positions should the mayor be able to do?
I'm not familiar with all that.
That would be an answer to a C-test, because those are laid out in individual law, the way that they are. I know you all throw the term private act around. Tennessee code is pretty specific on what the mayor can make appointments to, if you follow that. If you look back at some of the private acts that the legislative body in Nashville has done, those are passed on the state level and then adopted locally by each individual county that would want to do that. So without knowing which private acts that you have or have not done, you don't know anybody can turn to anything, say that it should fall under the state guidelines, whatever those are. You know, whatever the state.
That's what we have to do.
Yeah, so when the charter's passed, speaking positively, when the charter is passed, we need something in the implementation that will say all private acts and any conflicting laws are null. and
Oh,
void.
that goes, that being said, Jerry.
Done, done.
And I think that's mentioned in both of the charters that you're working out of, with the consensus right now anyway, Knox County and Shelby County, so.
Yeah. What else should our mayor be able to do? Crickets.
Well, the mayor has oversight over all the legislative laws, all that, and it's one of his responsibilities to see that they're carried out.
Carrying them out,
Mhm.
be his responsibility.
Right. And we've already said the budget,
That's a big, but,
yeah, that'll be a job right there.
all right, so if we're gonna load all this onto the mayor, what happens in 8 years?
He's gone.
And some,
Somebody's gonna have to be qualified.
somebody's gonna have to be
Gonna have to
qualified.
have a business degree and qualified to do all this.
Do we write qualifications for a mayor job?
Now, people, that's why I was against term limits when we talked about that the other time. And I said at that time, if you've got a mayor that's efficient, honest, reliable, responsible, and doing a good job, I don't think
Let him run as many times
I'm
as
still
he can do his
against, I'm
job.
still against term limits.
Well, we ain't done with all this stuff yet.
No,
so-
we're not done with anything yet, but I'm just,
Okay.
yeah, but
But I still think the county commissions definitely needs to be on term limits.
you know what our current qualifications for mayor is?
Yeah.
Be 25
But
years
see,
old.
when you
Yeah.
say the commissioners should be,
That's good.
Yeah.
and then you look at a district that nobody wants the job.
Mm.
I mean, and it,
Well, I don't agree with you, I don't agree with you on that, Jill, and I told you all
I
that
don't
the last
either.
time we talked about it.
Well,
But
we're
it-
still gonna have term limits, cause that's why everybody wants a charter commission to change things in the county. They're just not happy as it is, so.
But it's just like I said the other time, we've got term limits,
yeah.
we can vote them out anytime. But
I
if you've
think
got a
anybody
commission-
should be able to
No, our
work
current
as long as they're doing
system.
a good job. They shouldn't be
Well,
no
that's
age
when
limit or
election
nothing.
time
No,
goes.
that's not got nothing to do with it.
It's difficult. It's really difficult.
I'll offer it up the best way that I can with why I'm for term limits. My parents had a very different way of looking at life and living life than I did. My stepchildren have a very different way of looking at life and living it the way that I do. And the idea behind that, as mayor of the county, I ran on a vision for the county. I can only take that vision so far, no matter how many times I'm elected to the office of county mayor, because my vision is never gonna change, even though the times around me are going to change. So that next generation, be it an 8-year, 10-year, whatever period that it is, that's where you give room for growth to hand the baton off to the next generation to come up and say, I like the vision of the county, and I will take that further through the lens of this next generation coming up. I mean, that's why you send your kids to college, that's why you put them out in the workforce, you want them to be viable members of the community and hand it to the next one. Right now, you've got people that are telling you how to do things through the lens of 4 decades ago.
But see, you have the option of not running if you don't want to be a mayor
That is
anymore.
very true, Gail, I do, as does anybody who picks up a petition.
I understand what you're saying, but on the other hand, I understand what Gail's saying too.
I get both sides, and that's why it's up for you all.
But if you're doing,
to
how
do
can
that.
you not see that if you're doing a good job, why we wouldn't want to keep you in that position? And you have the option of saying, I don't want it, you know. And if you put a term limit on it, even if you want to stay in, you can't stay.
Well, people, the most influential legislative body in the United States is the US Congress and the US Senate. Do they have term limits?
No,
No, and look what that's got.
Yeah.
yeah,
What did it say?
look at the
What did it
quagmire
say?
in Washington.
Exactly. I understand that.
It-
I understand that,
It's
but
gonna get us Nancy Pelosi.
it goes back,
Which I
you know, it goes back
Bless
to
your
local
heart.
policy.
Sure.
It's, once one gets in there, it's hard to get them out. I understand that.
It's hard to get a bad guy out,
And
just as
That's as
hard
hard as it is.
to get a good guy.
guy in,
Yeah.
by the same
That's why
token,
we
on
need-
your,
I think we need term limits.
Oh, I like that old thing where you vote. That's the democratic way, and that's
Oh,
right.
I do too, Gail.
Well, they can do, well, they can run, do 8 years of voting and then, you know, stay up 4 years and then run again. So,
There you go.
that's right.
and by then, their vision will change to what's current.
That's right.
Because they'll realize why they were beaten, and they will change.
Yeah.
And that's a.
Well, it's like any other thing. It's two sides.
Yes, there is.
Absolutely. That's what the ballot box is for,
That's
to
right.
say,
That's
we
right.
agree with it or we don't
Exactly.
agree with it. No, if you all come up with a
There's six
consensus
sides.
for us to vote.
Come on, Jerry.
I sure am gonna make a motion.
Are you?
Yes, I am.
Well, that's up to
What do we
Tom.
like, Jerry?
That's a start on
That's
the
a
mayor's side.
good start.
Yeah, I think it is too. I think we brought up some
I have a
perfect.
question. Was the executive branch discussion under new business because the other,
Yes.
the
Yes.
draft was?
Yes.
Okay, you never did say, but I just assumed it was new business.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
yes.
I was prepared for my notes here.
Okay.
Hey, you've got some big shoes to fill. JD did an outstanding.
He
He-
did,
You know, I
he
told him that mine wouldn't be as good as his,
He did a great job this time.
Yeah.
so. But he said he was in dire straits, and I told him I could take notes for this. So-
All right, make your motion.
Yeah, make it,
I make a motion to adjourn.
You're a second?
Sure. I'll say.
All right, meeting adjourned. We've got the date for the next meeting already set,
23rd.
23rd of this
And,
month.
I will be at that